siembra de bambú es la solución. Yo ya estoy anotado con mi compadre Asunción.
We're a short distance inland from Nicaragua's Caribbean coast. The vegetation is lush and green and tropical. Once it was thick jungle, now it's a mixture of trees and land that's been exploited for grazing and other purposes. There is a good deal of naturally growing bamboo around here, but it's not been grown commercially before. And the Rio Karma project is out to change that for the benefit of the local community and investors alike. These past few months, new bamboo's been planted across the rolling landscape on this farm. And now, the big question. Will this indeed be green gold for this area?
Our ultimate objective here is to create bamboo as the timber of the 21st century. It's very easy to become obsessed with bamboo.
Camille Rebello, British and raised in Kenya, certainly does believe in bamboo. With a master's in environmental management from Yale, she sees herself as a pioneer of a new approach to make forestry work for people and also for profit. And to do so, she and her colleagues are tapping into new sources of private investment.
I've been working in forestry for about the last 10 years, looking at new mechanisms to address issues such as deforestation and land use change, and in particular whether carbon markets can really be used to address these issues.
This quest to find a new way of funding sustainable forestry led Camille to set up a company called EcoPlanet Bamboo with an American entrepreneur turned philanthropist, Troy Wiseman.
My ambition is that bamboo replaces tropical timber so people can stop cutting down forest. Bamboo is a regenerative asset that keeps growing. You can plant it on land that you can't grow crops on. Bamboo is, in my opinion, the best replacement for timber.
And in Nicaragua, timber practically disappears before your eyes. This tropical Central American country has one of the highest rates of deforestation in the world. It loses up to 3% of its forest cover every year to slash and burn farming, to ranching and to other development. To help reduce this huge annual loss, EcoPlanet Bamboo decided it would try to persuade investors that money really does grow on trees, or in this instance, more correctly, a grass, because that's what bamboo is. In the forestry sector, business and the environment aren't often found in close partnership. The mix of background and skills in EcoPlanet Bamboo makes things different. The company's developing a bamboo plantation here in Nicaragua, funded in part by the world's first bamboo bond.
This is the farm in both sides with access to the river and access to the road.
John Vogel is EcoPlanet Bamboo's director in Nicaragua.
You can see now the little holes where bamboo has been planted.
Quite small plants at the moment, but they'll grow very rapidly.
Beautiful. At this moment, the bamboo is like the young girl with the pimples that have not overcome puberty. It's not a good time to look at it, you know.
The land here at the Rio Karma plantation in the east of Nicaragua was bought by EcoPlanet Bamboo last year.
We have been able to plant the close to 1,000 hectares that will be completed next week.
The land on which the bamboo is being planted here, what exactly was it used for before?
It was used for cattle. Burning was damaging the environment and at the same time liberating CO2, erosion going to the river, sediment, contributing to floodings in other areas.
You say that the forest here is very much depleted. I mean, how would this area around us have looked then? Half a century, a century ago?
This was a jungle full of monkeys, full of deers, full of tropical lioness, and full of trees that you were not able to see the sunlight. But the egotism of man and short sight make them believe that by depleting this, it was going to be a quick income, and they do not need to worry about tomorrow.
Perhaps it's understandable that people have become used to thinking in the short term here when you consider Nicaragua's recent history, a civil war, natural disasters, economically isolated because of its left-wing politics, and today one of the poorest countries in Latin America. But it's also a land of great opportunity. That's how EcoPlanet Bamboo sees it. What better place to capitalise on the growing appetite for eco-investment and launch something entirely new, the Bamboo Bond, aiming to raise $12 million to fund a large part of the company's Nicaragua project. The bond hit the market last year, and it's expected to reach its target shortly.
At the largest bond of $50,000, it's about a 500% return on investment over a 15-year period.
And that's expected or guaranteed to the investor?
It's a guaranteed return to the investor backed by the plantation and the assets that come along with that Rama plantation.
Not surprisingly, because it was the first of its kind, and with returns of up to 500% being quoted, it generated a lot of interest. Many would-be investors apparently asked, isn't this simply too good to be true? Well, that's what we're exploring too, and we'll be asking how bamboo, something that's been seen more as a fast-proliferating pest than anything else in a country like Nicaragua, does have all this potential to help reduce poverty, to contribute to the fight against global warming, and on top of that, handsomely reward those who've bought into the bond. Bamboo has a reputation of being very fast-growing. I mean, how rapidly does it grow, the type that you're growing here? When will you start to harvest it? When will some of the investors start to see a return on their investment?
That species of Wadua bamboo that is growing here, between 4 and 5 years, is already producing.
In comparison, tropical hardwoods can take 20 years to mature, and when they're cut down, that's it. Whereas bamboo simply regenerates itself when it's harvested. And bamboo not only lives on, growing at its astonishing rate, it's also particularly effective at sequestering or capturing carbon from all those damaging emissions.
This is where bamboo is unique. You couldn't do such a bond on forestry simply because a forestry plantation has a one-off return on investment when you cut the trees. In contrast, bamboo, you're able to, once it hits maturity in year 4 to 5 for the species we're growing, you're then able to harvest sustainably every year. So you are able to produce these annual payments.
But, she insists, it's not just about creating wealth for the investors, those who've put their money into the Rio Karma project through the bamboo bond, or into another nearby plantation through a different means of investment.
We like to call it conscious capitalism. We absolutely are a for-profit company, but we value as highly our social and environmental returns and, in fact, report on those to our investors.
Ustedes han sido fundamentales.
John Vogel is addressing some of the workers at the bamboo plantation.
You have been the foundations of these dreams. Foreign investors have trusted you, and they have said that we will invest.
One of the workers tells me his story.
I was jobless before, but now I'm thankful that I have a job, and I'm so proud that I can do this job. In the past, I had to go to Costa Rica to find a job.
In terms of earnings, can you earn as much here as you did there?
It's the same. In Costa Rica, I used to be on my own. But now, I'm with my family, my wife, my children, and the family gets my earnings.
We are paying them 100 Cordobas plus 30 Cordobas of food.
And that's about £3 a day above the average for the area.
Plus social benefit, fringe benefits, plus social security.
For me personally, it's not really about the money. I mean, we have to make money or we can't create jobs, so I'm clearly a for-profit capitalist, but I want to do it in a way that matters. But for me, it's really about creating jobs and changing lives on the ground.
And some of the biggest changes here have been in the lives of women, many of whom have never had jobs before.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Maribel Urbina. A mí me parece bien.
My name is Maribel Urbina. I'm very grateful that now I have a job. I'm a single mother. I have 5 children. Before, I used to have really serious problems. Now I have enough money to care for my children.
At one stage, the company was hiring more than 30 new people a day. But as with any agricultural crop, the amount of work the company provides will inevitably fluctuate, says John.
We are not government to solve the problems of community as a whole and create the employment that everybody needs. We're contributing with a grain of sand to building and transforming this country as we all desire. This is the town of La Fonseca, where most of our workers for the Rio Camac farm come from.
And is this town, this community, changing a lot with investments like this?
You can see more stores, more business, more activity, and people buying better horses, dressing better. We're helping them also with health programs. You can see building activities, painting the houses, even the girls using a lipstick. Every 15 days, let's say $50,000-$60,000 circulate in the area.
Looks like a very new motorbike that's just taking off there. Maybe that tells us something about the area. And I'm with Lester Ortega, who plays a leading role in this community here. Lester Ortega, what impact is the Rio Cama project having already on this village?
Bueno, este proyecto ha tenido un muy buen impacto aquí.
It has had a very good impact here in La Fonseca. It has provided jobs, and people have a more dignified way of living.
This veranda we're sitting on is actually the veranda of your own shop, isn't it? And you're selling here what we might think of as luxury goods, fashion items. There's some high-heeled shoes behind and women's clothes and so on. Have you seen any change in the takings selling those kind of goods in recent times?
En primer lugar,
yes, there is more income, and therefore we're selling more.
People around here haven't traditionally seen bamboo as a source of income, have they?
Bueno, tradicionalmente el bambú aquí.
Traditionally, bamboo had existed here, but in the past we thought it was like a pest. Now we know it's good for the environment, and especially when we see that they're hiring people to work in a resource that we thought it was not a resource at all. This is a new crop for us, really.
On the opposite side of La Fonseca, a huge palm oil plantation was previously the only significant employer in the area. So now economic development is showing signs of increasing, and even if some of it is seasonal work, it means that labour is becoming more highly valued. But this progress hasn't been without some problems along the way, says John.
When we were first started, the people in the community in the area considered that there was an opportunity to take advantage and to try to control the destiny of the company. And all of a sudden, I found all the labor that they were on strike. There were at that time about 350 people, and they were guided and directed by political groups, most of them inclined to the left. Then we separated the group, and one by one we came into reason and communicated about the future, about trying to work together and so on. And everybody realized that they were being used and their work was being in risk.
But politically manipulated or not, I mean, does it suggest that there could be some grievances that could be reignited again?
No. I believe that this is a company that people right now feel proud to work in it. And the ones that are not working in it hope to have this opportunity.
At this store in La Fonseca, a popular meeting place, people seem positive about the bamboo plantation.
When I heard about the project, I thought my son is going to get a job. But I never thought that I was going to get a job as well. Before, I used to repair tires. But after the project came, I was hired.
The bamboo project is, of course, funded by foreign investors. What would you say is the attitude generally towards foreign investment here, in this part of Nicaragua in particular?
In the beginning, it was a bit difficult. People were perhaps a little bit suspicious, but now people trust the company. In the past, there were lumber companies working here. And many of them were not successful. They failed, and they didn't pay people. In fact, I worked in a lumber company for 20 years. And in the end, they didn't pay all they had to.
Gusto verte. Gracias. This is the natural bamboo. Of plants like that, we have thousands in our farm. We are going to initiate our operation of bamboo with our natural bamboo. We have millions of plants owned by people around that at this moment they burn them. And we're going to start buying from them.
So you want to see that bamboo put to commercial use as well?
Absolutely. We don't have to wait 4 years to initiate our operation.
It's very hard at that small-scale individual level to persuade a farmer that he can be making money from bamboo unless you can come in with a capitalist perspective, which is to put in the manufacturing. Because the truth of it is that those bamboo clumps that are sitting on the smallholder farmer's land are worth nothing unless you can process them into a very high-value, high-end product. So our ultimate objective is not to have huge, large-scale plantations. It is absolutely to be using outgrowers, smallholder farmers, letting them produce it on their own land. However, we very strongly feel that the way to do that is by doing it, improving it first, and then expanding in a much smaller community-based manner.
We'll be able to do masonry work and mixing it together with slurry, toothpicks, sandals,
calcetines,
socks,
camisa,
shirts,
calzoncillos,
underwear.
John Vogel's telling the workers at the plantation about all the different uses for bamboo. It has a higher tensile strength even than steel, yet it's also incredibly versatile. EcoPlanet, though, foresees the bamboo from Nicaragua earning big bucks mainly as a construction material.
But first, it has to grow. And once you learn, your families, your relatives, will be able to work in the factory, work in construction.
If bamboo is such a valuable species for the world, as we've been hearing, then it's extraordinary, perhaps, that outside China, the commercial market for bamboo has been so limited until recently. But it's in part because it's today's new technologies that are enabling bamboo to be processed more effectively for use across global markets in construction and for products such as flooring and furniture. Here, just a few miles away from its Nicaragua plantations, EcoPlanet is building its own bamboo processing factory close to the small town of Rama. Most significantly, it's on a river navigable by commercial shipping, which flows into the Caribbean.
It was very important to have a port close to our operation. By river and by road, we'll be able to bring our bamboo for export purposes.
And can the vessels that will take the bamboo to the United States or to other places, can they come up the river this far, or does it have to be moved on to other vessels at the coast?
No, they come from the United States with containers, and they come to Rio Escondido.
We've now come to Nicaragua's capital, Managua, to meet one of the country's leading environmental scientists, Dr. Jaime Inser Baquero. What does he make of the claims that bamboo's image in the country can be turned around in the way that EcoPlanet Bamboo envisages, and those who've put their money into the bamboo bond obviously hope?
Depende mucho del uso que demos al bambú.
It depends on the use given to the bamboo plant. Right now, we're just making baskets. So it would be good to teach the campesinos, the poor people, to build houses made of bamboo. We have lots of earthquakes here. They're safer, they're cheap to build. It's easy to learn how to construct those houses. So these are things that people in the rural areas could start doing. There is a need for foreign companies with vision to come and develop this kind of activities. And investors, of course.
And, of course, investors calculate risks carefully. There's a very particular risk with bamboo known as a mass flowering, when every species within an area will flower at the same time and then die. Scientists are still not sure why it happens. But Camille Rebello says that on this issue, the prospects for the Nicaragua bamboo crop are good for a long time to come.
EcoPlanet bamboo has a huge advantage, competitive advantage in Nicaragua, in that the species we're using, Guadua culeata, has just flowered in Nicaragua. And what that means is that we've produced all of our plantations from seed, and we know that the flowering cycle for this particular species is between 60 and 120 years, which means that once our seeds now grow into mature bamboo, etc., go through their life cycle, they will not flower again for the next 60 years.
But what about the political risks, given the country's history? Talk to any investment manager, and they say Nicaragua is not exactly synonymous with business and investor confidence. In elections towards the end of last year, Daniel Ortega's Sandinista government won a controversial third term. If the outside world still looks somewhat warily at Nicaragua, where do its own priorities lie today? I asked Roberto Araquistén Cisneros, Deputy Minister of the Environment and Natural Resources, whether the government welcomed foreign investment from companies like EcoPlanet Bamboo.
Sí, nuestro gobierno tiene un trato preferencial.
Yes, indeed. As the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, we're very interested and we welcome these investments because we know that these kind of projects protect the forest. Also, they bring a change in the traditional culture of the people, in the use of, for example, fire, which is a farm tool that has been used indiscriminately by peasants here in the rural areas.
Pero quiero ser específico. El bambú puede introducirse como...
What we don't want is for bamboo to become a single crop, where, they buy large amounts of land, like it happened with the African palm oil and other forestry investments. What happens is that they buy the land, then these poor farmers are uprooted from where they live, they go other places, and they start the process again. This is a problem. Yes, we want investors to come, but we don't want poor farmers going back to do the same thing over again.
No campesino sin tierra.
This is a key issue, ensuring there's no leakage, merely shifting the problem elsewhere so that poor farmers continue to destroy the rainforest. Camille Rebello maintains that EcoPlanet Bamboo has policies in place to ensure that doesn't happen because of the type of land they've bought to establish the plantation.
We only buy land from private owners who are simply not carrying out activities on it because it is financially unfeasible. So the Rio Kama plantation, to which the bond relates to, we bought this plantation off a single private owner, a very wealthy Nicaraguan who was just putting small-scale cattle on it. We knew absolutely that when he sold this, he wasn't likely to buy out a piece of rainforest and cut it down and put more cattle.
But are you concerned that elsewhere there could be such leakage? Bamboo may not be only a solution, it could also contribute to the problem, even if fully unintentionally.
Yes, as a company, we're very well aware that what we're doing with bamboo is opening up the market to people who might not have as good intentions as we do. And one of the things that we're trying to do to address that right now is start with these benchmarks and certification and best practice from the beginning.
And among the steps they're taking, they've now completed the preparatory process for certification under the Forestry Stewardship Council for Sustainable Forest Management, and for the most robust benchmark of the growing voluntary carbon credit market, the Verified Carbon Standard. They say there are a lot of over-the-counter carbon credits around that aren't backed by such certification. Alongside the money it's raising through the bamboo bond, securing carbon finance is important to EcoPlanet Bamboo's Nicaragua operations, particularly until the bamboo actually starts producing.
EcoPlanet Bamboo has a unique global opportunity at the moment in that we are leading what we're calling the bamboo revolution, and we have the opportunity to make sure that's done correctly. I get asked this a lot by especially the NGO sphere, what is to stop bamboo simply becoming the next problem crop, whether it's jatropha or oil palm or whatever else. And the difference in what we're doing is that we're starting from the beginning with such benchmarks rather than doing them as an afterthought once the crop becomes part of the problem.
What EcoPlanet Bamboo is looking to take advantage of in carbon financing for now does not directly involve the Nicaraguan government, though carbon capturing and reversing deforestation on its bamboo plantations could feed into any national scheme established in the future. But does the government believe that carbon financing can help protect its forests and its environment? When I put that question to the Deputy Minister of the Environment, he made it clear that he thinks the current carbon credits are another dimension of the imbalance between the big emitters of greenhouse gases and vulnerable countries like his own.
Quiero aclarar que, en primer lugar, la política de nuestro gobierno.
Our government policy is that it's okay for the companies to use the carbon credit. As a country, we endorse it. But we don't want really to commit our forests. They want from us very, very strong commitments. They don't recognize the cultural aspects. The forest is like a supermarket to our people. You know, this is where they find their food, they find medicine.
Creemos que los precios.
The prices paid for the ton of carbon, the prices are ridiculous, between $4 and $5 per ton. That is what they want to pay us. While in the United States, the cost is $400, and they only want to pay us $4 or $5 per ton.
In other words, the government argues that carbon financing makes unjust conservation demands and gives minimal rewards to a country like Nicaragua. But does Camille Rebello have any sympathy with the minister's concerns?
Not necessarily. I think if a country is actually going to actively take steps to address their carbon sequestration and carbon emission reductions, there is financing and money available. I think there is a false understanding in a lot of these countries of just how difficult that process is and what it actually takes to be addressing climate change on a level that has quantitatively real and tangible benefits. For example, Nicaragua right now has one of the highest deforestation rates in the world. If they could actually do something to address those, then, and only then, would they be able to say that they need to be being paid to do that.
Illegal logging, both on an organised scale and by individuals struggling to survive, continues to be one of the biggest problems. Shouldn't the authorities have done more to stop the deforestation?
Plenamente reconozco que es responsabilidad de gobierno.
Absolutely. You're quite right. The government is responsible. But you know, there are good governments and there are governments that do not care. The bad use of the resources was promoted. And officials were allowed to violate the law in exchange of bribes.
Now, as I understand it, bamboo is an unregulated industry in this country at the moment. Does that mean that you favour bringing it under regulation?
No, porque
bamboo is not the problem. It's uprooting these people. When they have money, they go and buy land in protected areas and they start the process again.
No sign then that regulation of bamboo is just around the corner, and that's music to Troy Wiseman's ears.
Well, for me, I would run. Personally, if the government's involved in more regulations, if I thought more regulations were coming, because regulations mean it costs you more money, which means you can hire less people, which means more people don't work, and then they're closer to the business so they can extort money from you in these countries. And so, I think it's the opposite. I think more regulation would scare me as an investor.
Many American investors in particular remain nervous of Nicaragua, says Troy, and with perceptions still shaped by the Reagan era and US attempts to keep the Sandinistas from power, many will still think of the country as a risky political and economic environment in which to do business.
You still have the Sandinistas, and you still are going to have people that infiltrate your company and try to cause problems. That's just going to happen. But, from an investor standpoint, I would say yes. That's why we really stress Central America versus Nicaragua. And I know that the country's growing. I know that it's stable. I know that it's safe. But, the media in this country during the Oliver North days really just painted Nicaragua as an evil empire. And so, that's how people think of it. So, yeah, I definitely was worried about that. I'm not so worried about it that I'm not willing to put in millions more dollars.
I think there's a misconception of Nicaragua's political risk, which once you actually start to look into the data and where Nicaragua ranks in comparison with other countries in Latin America, you see that political risk is really a very minimal issue within the region. So it's something that investors often bring up, but as soon as they read that documentation and have access to the facts, it hasn't been a limiting factor for sale of the bond.
Do you feel that you can say to any investors that there is absolutely no chance at all that this could turn out to be a house of cards, if you like? I mean, there are some notorious ones in agriculture and forestry down the years, aren't there? And you mentioned there have been scams in the green area, the groundnut scheme in Tanzania. Some have really made history in themselves. Do you feel absolutely certain that you can say that this is watertight? It simply couldn't happen in this case?
No, absolutely not. As with any investment, there's risk, and we don't try to cover over those risks. What we do is lay them out on a table for an investor and tell them the options of what happens if that risk occurs. And if certain things were to happen on the plantation, what would happen to an investor's money? The most we can do is be transparent.
The investment specialists that launched the bamboo bond with EcoPlanet were only too well aware that they were doing so in a field where there have been schemes offering apparently high returns for projects that turned out to be nothing but thin air, with the added factor of Nicaragua's image and, in many people's minds, the uncertainty likely to surround a previously untested way of financing a bamboo project. Those marketing the bond felt they needed to highlight the eye-catching 500% top return to compensate investors for putting their faith in it, even if this figure then raised more eyebrows.
People think, how can you make 500%? Well, really, it's not, right? You divide that by 15 years, so it's 30-something%, right? That's what they should have gone out and said. And listen, it worked, and that's their business, and that's what they get paid to do. But I didn't like it. I still don't like it. And on this next go-around, I've told them that we're not going to do it if they don't change it, and so they have. But do I think that the people that bought the bigger bond can get average 33%? I absolutely do, because of the experts that came in to look at it and evaluate the market. I think it's going to be a lot easier when we have our own manufacturing, which is why we're working hard to have the manufacturing facility up before we have to start harvesting.
They're also exploring whether they can bring their investment strategy as far as possible under the British regulatory authority, the FSA. Robert Bill, a UK-based investment manager, says FSA approval would do much to increase confidence.
One thing looking at an investment in terms of its risk and return, but it's altogether another thing worrying about the actual legal side of it and whether the assets particularly are secure, because clearly something like this is a tremendous leap of faith, given that you're sending your money overseas, particularly with something like this, because it's frankly an unknown quantity. But as an investor, it's very difficult to know what a reasonable price is for bamboo and what a reasonable price is for land in Nicaragua.
And what would you say are, in fact, the key issues when investment managers, not just stupid investment managers in general, look at eco-investments today?
It's something that clients are asking more and more about. I think the whole idea of wealth management is not so much about what can the money do for me and how much income can I gain. Clients want the money in some way to do some good. We're having increasingly clients wanting to look at schemes investing into microfinance and also looking more generally overseas at schemes that they feel not necessarily ethical but are making a positive contribution to the way that the world is progressing. And it could be that what's happened in the credit crunch and all the talk of greed has sort of caused people to think a bit more about that and actually what good can the money do.
As Robert Bill suggests, there are significant trends in the whole relationship between capitalism, long perceived by many as the enemy of a cleaner environment, and the immense challenges around our use of the planet's forestry and land and other natural resources.
I want to see bamboo being the timber of the 21st century. I just want to see it replace the cutting of the forest and replace a lot of the stuff that wood can do. That's my vision.
So there is a bamboo revolution then, but like all revolutions, it could be just a little bit of a turbulent one.
You can be assured it's going to be turbulent, and we're going to make our fair share of mistakes, that's for sure. But, you have to just take each day at a time. But I'm confident that we'll get to the end of where we're supposed to get to.
Under a bamboo shelter here, we've come across a group of workers who are just stopping for a break in the course of their work. If you had a message for those abroad who are thinking about putting money into this or other projects like it in Nicaragua, what would it be?
The
message would be to continue supporting the project because this is very important for our families.
This is a beginning and it's moving forward. We are present and doing something to contribute to the economy, to contribute to democracy. We have to be in the countries that need progress. People have shown confidence in Nicaragua. I have told my partners and everybody that Nicaragua is not a bed of roses.
John Vogel, conviction tempered with reality. On the plantation in eastern Nicaragua, it feels at the moment like a bit of a gold rush, a green gold rush. Since the Rio Kama bamboo will be destined mainly for the United States, it's going to a part of the world where people are rapidly coming to appreciate bamboo's full potential, apparently. But there are expectations that Europe will catch up, and that we too will not be surprised if it turns out that the flooring beneath our feet or the decking in our gardens is made from the beautiful slender plants now rising in bamboo-growing countries like Nicaragua. Then, maybe, the bamboo revolution will be closer to completion.
Ha llegado al pueblo una nueva solución, una empresa grande llamada Nicabambú. Siembra de bambú es la solución. Yo ya estoy anotado con mi compadre Asunción.